You're listening to Chibi Joe ASMR. Ah, I see. You came back to hear my story, did you? The story of Morris Castle. It's a story that's been passed down my family for generations. And I feel so honored that you came to my channel to hear it. It all starts, like most campfire stories do, on a stormy night. This night was no different than any other stormy night. However, there's this girl, her name, if I remember correctly from what my grandfather told me, her name was Mimi. She ran into Morris Castle, looking for refuge from the rain. So, she goes in there, takes off her jacket and folds up her umbrella, and begins doing what any logical human would do in a new environment. She begins exploring. She's looking at the walls, seeming so old yet so new, as if time had no effect on the castle. The torches were lit at the same time. There were lamps, easily from the 1950s. She saw paintings that looked like they were portraits of kings and queens of past. And yet, she also saw paintings that looked like they were done by Andy Warhol. Little Mimi continued walking through the castle, amazed by the combination of modern and old. She kept on thinking, well, maybe this castle isn't abandoned, as they say. Maybe the owners just seclude themselves and they're on holiday. Mimi didn't matter, though. For right now, it was just shelter. She went into the kitchen, and again was amazed by just how new it looked. Microwaves, refrigerators. And yet there still was a cast iron stove in the corner. Mimi didn't know what to think about it until she heard thump, thump. She heard the thumps. They sounded faint, but she could still hear them. She looked around. Could they have been footsteps? No. They didn't feel or hear like any footsteps she's ever heard, especially on this stone floor. Thump, thump, thump. Eventually, she just kept on going, trying to ignore the sound. And then she looked at the fridge and she started getting hungry. She heard the low growl in the darkness. She looked around and she again couldn't see anything. It frightened her, but again, she didn't want to go back out in the rain and risk getting sick, so she just ignored the sound and found an apple in the fridge, a nice, fresh apple. She continued her exploration after getting said apple, munching along as she looks at the paintings, the banners, the lights. And then she started hearing it again. Thump, thump, thump. This one a little more thump, thump. It scared her as it got louder and louder with every second. Thump! Thump! She started running, her breath starting to hitch as she ran and ran and ran, the sound just getting louder and louder. Thump! Thump! She started feeling a breeze hit her, a nice, warm breeze hitting her in the face. Thump! Thump! As she ran to what she assumed was towards the center of the castle, she started hearing multiple heartbeats, multiple thumps. Thump, thump, thump. She opened the door, and all the sound went quiet. As she entered the room, it was empty, except for a nice skylight. She looked at the beautiful moon above her, the sky a dark, dark purple. As she looked back down from the skylight onto the floor again, she noticed 6 figures. All of them looked as if they were from different times. The earliest one looking as if from the Crusades of the 1400s. The most modern one looking as if gotten straight out of the 1960s, maybe 70s, from Mimi's guess. It scared her, seeing these ghostly, pale, darkened-eyed figures in front of her. Thump, thump, thump. She started hearing the thumps again, and as she heard her thumps that had been following her since the time she's entered here, she started hearing multiple more thumps. Thump, thump, thump. The figure started walking towards her. She tried opening the door. Thump, thump, thump. To no avail. The door was locked. She was trapped with these figures. Thump, thump. She turned around, looking at them, trying to find a way to get around them or through them. But then she noticed, as they got closer, they started to disappear. Thump, thump. And she started noticing as more disappeared, the thumps grew quieter and fewer in number. Thump, thump. Till there was one left, besides Mimi. A charming young man, probably in his mid-20s. His long black hair. In his own time, he was probably seen as good-looking. So she asked him in fear, "Why? What is this place? What is all this thumping? What are you?" The young man smiled. "Morris Castle is where all our hearts reside." Thump, thump. Well, I hope you enjoyed my story, my sweet listeners. And just remember, Happy Halloween.